information about resources, a network of people who work on Southeast Asia, and really to try to cultivate a community for the study of and in Southeast Asia among students and faculty and staff alike. Our inaugural conference consists of 4 panels, each on a different day. So on Monday, we had a panel targeting both graduate students and faculty. Yesterday, we had a really fantastic panel on targeting graduate students. Today's focus is undergraduate students, and tomorrow is focused on faculty. We've made a somewhat belated decision, which all of today's panelists have happily agreed to, that we will post the recordings. We will post these recordings on our website after the final panel. So if you are a student and want to go back to these resources, if you have students and you would like to send them to today's discussion, that will be possible. And that said, I will begin with some thanks. And the most important people to thank are, first of all, NYSEAN, the New York Southeast Asia Network, for making the PUC possible, and Luce Foundation for making NYSEAN possible. And John Gershman will say just a little bit about NYSEAN for those unfamiliar with the network.
Hi, thanks, Meredith. Welcome, everyone. We're very excited about the inaugural series of events for NYSEAN PUC. The New York Southeast Asia Network was created in 2015. I posted the URL in the chat, and we're a network, the founders of which come from NYU, Columbia, and Seton Hall, which really aims to raise the level and support for academic research and policy debate on issues in Southeast Asia and US Southeast Asia relations. We couldn't be more thrilled with the establishment of NYSEAN PUC and hope that this is only the first of many such meetings and conversations. And congratulations to Meredith for pulling this together, and for Zheng Wang, who's done yeoman's work in terms of organizing this. It's been 2 great panels already this week, and I'm sure today and tomorrow are going to be outstanding as well. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John. Yes, and that brings me to perhaps the most important, no offense to NYSEAN and Luce, but perhaps the most important group to thank, which is the students who have pulled this all together on very short notice, really creating both the conference and the kernel of what we can establish as a longer lasting network for New York State. And so I'll just list them in alphabetical order: Alyssa, Asari, Charmaine, Jeffrey, Karina, Crystal, Nurul, Kwang, and especially you've already all heard from Zheng Wang, who has been the coordinator for the effort and has done an incredible job with that. Without further ado, we will launch into the day's panel. And I will say that we will have time for Q&A at the end. You are welcome either to take advantage of the fact that you are actually here and visible to us, even if just as a name in a black box for now, to ask questions audibly, or you can post questions in the chat and I'll present them to the panelists. You are also welcome to just introduce yourself in the chat if you would like. And the other thing that you may add in the chat, or you could email to Zheng or me, would be if you have suggestions for things that you would like to see, especially if you're an undergraduate and you have ideas of what you would like this network to provide for moving forward. So for next fall, we're considering organizing maybe a couple panels that might be of use broadly. So if you have ideas of things you'd like to see us do, whether they be panels or other sorts of things, or that NYSEAN might be interested in doing, please feel free to send those suggestions. All right, so we begin. I will moderate the panel, and we have with us, I'm so happy to say, Jinda Moore, who is the program coordinator for the Southeast Asia Summer Studies Institute, SIASI, at University of Wisconsin-Madison. Christian Speedling, who is a Albany master's student, worked on Southeast Asia, but is now the Global Partnerships Manager for the Office of Global Affairs at SUNY. Jacqueline Ledermann, who is a professor of globalization studies and the assistant director of global academic programs for the Center for International Education and Global Strategy at Albany, SUNY. Weihsin, who is an associate professor with the Department of English, and as well as the director and faculty graduate advisor for the graduate program in Southeast Asia Studies for the University of California, Riverside, which is one of the leading programs for Southeast Asian studies in the country. And then Eric Jones, who is at another of the really central places to study Southeast Asia in the country. He is an associate professor in history and the acting director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at Northern Illinois. And so we will go in the order that everyone is listed on the schedule you all have. They'll each give a pithy presentation, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So Jinda, take it away.
Great, thanks so much, Meredith. So hi, everybody. I'm glad you can join us today. As Meredith mentioned, I'm Jinda Moore. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I coordinate the Southeast Asian Studies Summer Institute at the University of Wisconsin. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, sounds good. So today I'm going to be talking about Southeast Asian language learning opportunities during the summer at CSE, as well as an opportunity to continue language study during the academic year post-CSE. All right. Oh, no. So first, I'm going to start out discussing the most significant opportunity to study Southeast Asian languages intensively during the summer, which is via CSE. Then I'm going to go into ways that you'll be able to support your language study with fellowships and scholarships. And then there are two really special opportunities to study Indonesian language, in particular at CSE, both of which come with full funding. The first one is the Indonesian Flagship Language Initiative, also known as IFLI, and Project Global Officer for ROTC students, which is known as Project Go. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll cover a way to continue language study post-summer. All right, so first off, I want to mention that at this point, CSE isn't taking any more applications for this summer's program. We are maintaining a wait list, but unfortunately the deadline was on April 5th. So this is something to think about for next summer, not this summer, but next summer, 2022. So CSE is an intensive summer language program specializing obviously in Southeast Asian languages. It's hosted by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and supported by a network of Southeast Asian study centers at universities across the United States. Super excited to be on a panel with Eric because NIU is a great supporter of CSE. Great to collaborate, I love it. So CSE offers all of our languages at the beginning through advanced level, depending on enrollment, typically a minimum of 4 students. It's a great opportunity to continue either academic year language training or an awesome chance to try out something new or learn a heritage language. The student application has 4 components, 5 if you're applying for financial aid. There's a simple online application form, a 1 to 2 page statement of purpose. We request academic transcripts from college. We don't need high school transcripts necessarily. And then a $25 application fee. Financial aid applications also require 2 letters of recommendation. The application deadline is typically the first Monday in April each year, but I just want to mention to make sure to check out the financial aid deadlines because a lot of them can be quite a bit sooner. And then CSE uses the communicative and project-based approaches to language learning. So this means that your language teacher would be using the target language or the language that you're studying almost exclusively in class, and that you're also expected to use the language to get practice. The classroom is more or less a no English zone. We try our very best. This has proven to have huge outcomes in students' language acquisition, so you'll make good progress in your language learning. And you'll also be working on projects and presentations in the languages that you're studying. For example, the Indonesian program has organized a really cool mock election in past years with all levels of students participating, from voters to candidates to journalists. It's super cool. CSE also offers a wide variety of extracurricular activities to supplement the area studies and language learning, including a guest speaker series, a film series, something we call Poetry Night, which is kind of like an open mic where participants perform songs or poems in Southeast Asian languages. a student conference, and then social hours that are in both English, and we also have social hours in target language, just for students to get to know each other outside of class and across languages. Let's see, a huge goal of CIASI is community building, both inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. And we've heard from so many alumni that they've stayed in touch and formed real lasting relationships with their CIASI classmates, which we're super proud of and I think is super cool. And I know it's true for me as a CIASI alumni for Lao. So a little bit about the format. CIASI students come from all over the United States and even from overseas. So it's definitely not limited to only University of Wisconsin students. While this summer our program is fully remote, we expect to be back in Madison for next summer, 2022. Most of our students choose to travel to Madison to attend the language classes in person. And we definitely encourage everybody who's able to come in person to do so in order to receive the full benefits of the program, not only in class, but outside of class, networking and making connections. But we also have a limited number of synchronous distance spots available for students who are not able to relocate over the summer. The program is held for 8 weeks during the summer, typically from mid-June through early August each year. These 8 weeks are the equivalent of a full year of language study, split into 2 4-week semesters with a final exam at the end of each 4-week period. It can be very intense and definitely intensive. Students who successfully complete the program receive 8 UW-Madison credits that you can then work with your home institution to transfer over. It can be really helpful in completing foreign language requirements that you might have to do for your degree. We tell our students to treat language learning at CIASI like a full-time job because it really is an 8-hour per day commitment. Classes are held for 4 hours per day, and then students can expect 4 to 5 hours of homework per night. So it's quite a bit of work. Plus we have our fun extracurricular activities. I personally strongly believe that it's also important to leave time each day to unwind, de-stress, and have some fun by exploring all that Madison has to offer if you're able to join us in person. For example, I put a picture of the Thai Pavilion at Olbrich Botanical Gardens. It's one of only a couple in the United States, and it's super beautiful. And there's also quite a few Southeast Asian restaurants in the city. Our website at the bottom of the slide, ciasi.wis.edu, has more information about our program, and especially about financial aid opportunities and eligibility requirements. And you can also send us an email if you have any questions. All right, so super important. There's quite a few funding opportunities available for study at CIASI, and we encourage students to apply for all funding opportunities that they're eligible for. At the same time, however, students can only ultimately accept one award or up to the full cost of tuition, but it's good to put in as many applications as you can, just in case. So the first one, FLAS fellowships, Foreign Language and Area Studies fellowships, are provided by the U.S. Department of Education to Title VI National Resource Centers across the United States. CIASI is fortunate to be able to make FLAS available to students across the United States, not only to students studying at National Resource Centers. So if you're at a university that does not have a Southeast Asian Studies National Resource Center, you can definitely still apply for FLAS through CIASI. FLAS awards full tuition and fees for the program, along with a $2,500 living stipend for the summer, and is available both to undergraduate and graduate students who are US citizens or permanent residents and who are studying language at the second year level or higher. The awesome thing about this award is that you can apply for it during the summer and then also during the academic year if you are a student at a National Resource Center for Southeast Asia. Also during the academic year, it still awards full tuition and fees along with a higher living stipend for the longer period of the academic year, if you're able to continue studying at your home university. And then another special one for CIASI is the Wesley Tuition Scholarship. It's also a full tuition scholarship, no living stipend though, but it does award full tuition and fees to study at CIASI. And the great thing about this award, aside from the generous amount, is that everybody's eligible for it, from first-year students to international students, undergraduates, graduates, non-students. We encourage everybody to apply. And then more information is also available on our website. Next, we have a partial award, the CIASI Tuition Scholarship. It helps reduce the overall cost of tuition, but they're typically a partial award. For example, it typically reduces the overall tuition cost by over half, from $4,300 to $2,000. And you can apply directly. The application is built into the CIASI application form, just requires the 2 extra letters of recommendation. And then the next 2 scholarships, the Boren Scholar and Fellow Awards and Project Go, are just for Indonesian. But the Boren Awards are funded by the US government. They consist of the Boren Fellowship for graduate students and the Boren Scholarship for undergraduate students. These students are able to study critical languages and are able to study at all proficiency levels, from 0 background to higher proficiency. They're available at CIASI through the Indonesian Flagship Language Initiative, or IFLI program, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And then students who are participating in ROTC are eligible for Project Global Officer, known as Project Go, for Indonesian study, and I'll talk about that too in a moment. Again, I just want to stress to make sure to check the application deadlines for any fellowships. All right, so the Indonesian Flagship Language Initiative, known as IFLI, is one of several regional flagship languages initiatives funded by the Boren Awards. A full scholarship that offers awardees the opportunity for intensive language study of Indonesian, and then also for cultural immersion by participating in both domestic and overseas language programs. Participants in IFLI can start with 0 language proficiency all the way through advanced levels of Indonesian. Both undergraduates and graduates are welcome to apply for this fully funded Boren program, and students from a wide variety of backgrounds and majors have accepted. I do want to stress, though, that in exchange for receiving the funding to study Indonesian with this award, awardees do agree to utilize their skills within the US government by seeking and hopefully securing federal employment for at least 1 year. Alumni are committed to public service through the US government and may work in positions critical to US national security, including the Department of State, Defense, Homeland Security, and USAID. IFLI is supported by a few organizations, including the US government through the Boren Awards for the funding and program application, University of Wisconsin-Madison for the summer course at CIASI, and American Councils for the Fall Abroad program. These are the requirements for the various aspects of the program, summer and fall. So just like at CIASI, IFLI students are expected to treat their award as a full-time job. I'll let you review the requirements. And I do want to say that the deadlines to apply for IFLI are different for graduate and undergraduate students. For graduate students in late February or in late January, typically undergraduate students have about a week or so more time, with the applications due in early February. For more information, you can visit borenawards.org. And then I'm briefly going to touch on Project Global Officer, also known as Project Go, which is funded by the US Department of Defense to fully support critical language study for ROTC students. At CIASI, we offer Project Go only for Indonesian. Funding covers tuition and fees, room and board, travel to Madison, books, and then health insurance. And it's a really great way for ROTC students to build their resume and then often receive bonus pay for their services once they're full-time military. The deadline to apply is in mid-February each year for the following summer. And it has a website at the bottom, rotcprojectgo.org. And then finally, I want to touch on the way to continue your summer language study into the academic year, which I'm super excited about. It's new starting last summer. So this is for students who are studying at North American universities, not only schools with Southeast Asian National Resource Centers. So this means that anybody who studies at CSE can continue their language study during the academic year, which I think is super cool. The Southeast Asian Language Council, in cooperation with the Henry Luce Foundation, offers partial tuition reimbursement for students to continue their Southeast Asian language study during the academic year. And to be eligible, as I mentioned, the course must be hosted at a North American university. Students must be enrolled full-time at their home university and then take the course for credit. And the Southeast Asian language course must be taken via synchronous distance. It can't be something that you do on your own time. It has to be during the class time. So again, this is a great opportunity to build on the language study began at CSE. You won't have to wait a whole year and possibly lose some language before you continue your language study the next summer. The application deadline is in mid-July for the following fall or spring semester, and more information can be found at silk.wis.edu. And that's all I've got. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you may have. You can email me at csc@southeastasia.wis.edu with questions about any of the programs I just mentioned. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jinda. And I'm personally so excited to hear about the year-long funding for Southeast Asian languages. It's been such a gap, so that's fantastic. All right, moving on. Christian.
Unmute. Okay. I swear I've been doing Zoom for a year and a half now. Hello, everybody. My name is Christian Speedling. I am currently the Global Partnerships Manager at the Office of Global Affairs at SUNY System Administration. I am formerly a study abroad advisor for about 10 years at SUNY New Paltz. And at that time, I was also a graduate student at Rockefeller College at Albany, studying political science, comparative politics, and with a focus on Southeast Asia. Thank you, Professor Weiss, for helping me out with that. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the world of study abroad as it exists today. So obviously, the pandemic has really upended the field of international education generally, broadly, but especially student mobility, otherwise known as education or study abroad. It's been canceled basically for the world, at least for the United States for the most part. Most universities have canceled definitely all of last year and summer. So for SUNY, study abroad is definitely not happening, at least through this summer. But that said, things are starting to open up again, and that includes planning for study abroad programming for the fall and spring. We have a plan, SUNY has a plan under review right now with the higher ups that, if it's approved, will allow for certain programs to run again. And this plan is really based on CDC travel advisories and Department of State travel advisories. They've recently sort of dovetailed them. For a while, they were both sort of operating basically independently of each other. So now they're much more in line, which is a lot easier for us to deal with. And the good news is that for a variety of reasons, Southeast Asia is actually doing quite well in the fight against COVID, and will likely be at the front of the line when programs are going under a review for approval. This is all tentative, right? Nothing I'm saying is happening yet, but fingers crossed that we're going in that direction. So what I'm going to do quickly is just show you a little chart that I made up just for today that will show you where we are with Southeast Asia in terms of the advisories. Bear with me here. So the ones that are highlighted are the ones that would be under the current plan, which isn't approved yet, but would probably be considered for approval, especially the green ones. The green ones, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, they are at a level 2 for the Department of State, which is exercise increased caution. And then the reason why you would exercise increased caution is in the next column there. All of them are due to COVID. And then the CDC travel health notice is also either at a level 2 or a level 1, which means either very low or moderate level of COVID in the country. The yellow one is, again, this one is they're telling you to reconsider travel to Brunei, mainly for reasons related to COVID-19, but not because of super high levels. As you can see in the travel, the CDC travel, they're at a very low level of COVID, but they have severe restrictions on ability to travel within the country and for foreigners coming to their country. So they're basically like, there's no point. Brunei isn't exactly a super popular study abroad destination anyway. But anyway, I thought I would share that with you. Those 3 countries at the bottom do have study abroad programs. And when I say that, I really am just talking about SUNY right now, because that's where my focus is. But you know, there are definitely study abroad programs all over the world offered throughout universities throughout the country. Where are my notes? And I'll get to that in a second. That's the list. So let me talk quickly about studying abroad with SUNY. For SUNY students who are here today, any SUNY student can study abroad on any other SUNY school's program. And in doing so, you'll remain enrolled at your home school, pay tuition to your home school. When you come home, your credits will transfer seamlessly. It's a very nice process that they've worked out, that we've worked out. And you know, it really makes it very, very easy to do. And it gives you a choice, a breadth of choices that most students do not get. So with that said, non-SUNY students who may be in the room are also welcome to study on SUNY study abroad programs, and vice versa. You can, as a SUNY student, if you are really dead set on a program that you just cannot find in SUNY, you should be able to talk to your advisors, make sure you're doing everything right, you know, administratively. Most likely you'll be taking a leave of absence and go and study on that program. It's not as seamless as it would be if you were staying in SUNY. That said, I saw it all the time back when things were normal. So it is possible. So if there is a study abroad program, say with Wisconsin or something, that you wanted to do, you could, you know, petition to do that, and certainly go ahead and do that. There is a place to go to find a relatively comprehensive list of study abroad programs offered in SUNY. And I say that with a caveat only because it's technology. It's not exactly perfect. Certain campuses are not super good about updating this website with their offerings all the time. But let me share that site with you too, just so you can see what it looks like. Share my screen again. So it's suny.edu/study abroad, pretty basic. Here's the big disclaimer, the cancellation for winter, spring, and summer. I'm going to get to virtual study abroad in a second, but basically if you wanted to search the programs, you click Start Now, and it'll take you to a little search screen with a map. I did a little Southeast Asia search to begin with. Not a whole lot going right now, but nothing's going right now, but they're out there. You can search by country, what you're studying, what term you'd like to do, and then once you get the results, you can kind of scroll through and get much more details about the program from there. And this will actually take you to the SUNY school's website that's offering the program, where you would do the actual application. So hopping back out, sorry if you're getting dizzy from my screen shares. So that's study abroad in a nutshell. I'm sure there's questions, and if there are, I'll happy to answer them, but I just wanted to get through that. If you don't see a country listed, you could talk to your study abroad advisor, because they may know of programs that aren't on that website that are currently running throughout SUNY or with private universities or what we call third-party providers. They run programs separately as well. So your advisor may know of some. And you should also talk to your academic advisor. Professor Weihsin can attest to this, that if pestered enough, they may be convinced to run a faculty-led program to study abroad in Southeast Asia. My background here is, many of you may recognize it, it's Angkor Wat in Cambodia, which is a picture that I took on my short-term January study abroad program with Professor Weihsin. It was amazing. We were in Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, about 3 or 4 nights in each country. It was, again, short-term, January, but an unforgettable experience that I like to think I had some role in getting organized by bothering Professor Weiss over and over again to do that. So, you know, if never give up is the lesson there. And definitely talk to your advisors, because there's so much out there that you should be able to find exactly what you're looking for. So as I mentioned, in the meantime, while everything's canceled, virtual study abroad has really proliferated everywhere. What is virtual study abroad? I'm just going to read a definition that one of these providers puts out there. A virtual study abroad program is an online experience that connects you with international opportunities and infuses your educational experience with a global foundation. Just as in a traditional study abroad program, you'll take courses from instructors who are experts in the field, and often those instructors will be on the ground abroad. It's not always that way, but that's kind of where like the study abroad comes from. So instead of going to Oxford University and taking courses from the professors there, you may enroll in a course at Oxford through your university. That's one way of doing it. There are a lot better ways of doing this as well, and much more engaging international or virtual study abroad programming, not just an online class through another university. That's frankly, that's kind of lame. So there are a lot better ones as well, where you really engage with students from and faculty and communities from the other culture and get to know them much more so than just an online class. I'm going to share again. Bear with me here. This one. This is in my way. Get out of my way. Nope. Sorry, guys. Go back to the beginning. SUNY.edu/study abroad. If you click virtual study abroad programs, this is a running list that I update every week of virtual study abroad programs that SUNY is offering right now. You can sort it by term. So if you wanted to go for the summer, you click one of these and it kind of expands, and you can read a little bit more about each one. I looked, and there are some offerings with countries, cities, universities in Southeast Asia. One of them was, I believe, here. I lost it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, here it is. This is called CRCC Asia, and they have one partnered with a school in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, but there are others. And one of the ones that I'm going to talk to you about today, it's a little bit of like shameless self-promotion, but my office is helping to organize something called the SUNY COIL Global Commons. So this is the second year that it's running. The Global Commons is a special virtual study abroad program that's pretty unique, I think. Again, it ran last summer. We're trying to run it again this year. It's a program where students enroll in 2 3-credit courses online alongside students from throughout SUNY. And frankly, this is open to students throughout the world, and we're promoting it with our networks internationally and nationally. You take one course in storytelling and one focused on one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You choose your favorite goal, and one of 6. We had to select a few. We couldn't go with all 17, but one of the 6 that we've chosen. And so you learn about telling stories and about the SDGs in your courses, and then you take that knowledge and you work alongside your fellow students with a community-based organization abroad that you get to meet midway through the course. And so these are organizations, NGOs, CBOs. Last year it was mostly focused in Africa, but we're not actually sure where it's going to be, where we're going to get the partners from this year. So there may end up being some from Southeast Asia, but regardless, it's a great experience. These people are working really hard in their local communities to focus on whatever it happens to be: deforestation, hunger, one of the goals, right? One of the sustainable development goals, and they need help in telling their story. And so the students work on a project, whether that's a video, somebody made a graphic novel last year, blog posts, podcast situation, any sort of medium that you choose with your group, and you actually help this organization to tell their story and create something tangible for them. So that's what I mean when I say, like, the virtual study abroad doesn't just have to be an online class. Like, that is pretty bare bones. It could be super engaging and really meaningful. Like, you're making a difference in these local communities, and you'll really get something out of it, and so will they. So I don't know how long I've been talking, but that was kind of what I had prepared, and I'll leave some time for Q&A, I guess.
Okay, you're almost precisely on time. Great, and those are amazing initiatives. The program, the summer program that you described at the end, it sounds really remarkable, as do the others. So yeah. Okay, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much, Meredith. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Ledermann. I'm the Assistant Director for Global Academic Programs at SUNY Albany in the Center for International Education and Global Strategy, which is really long, formerly known as the Study Abroad Office. It's a lot easier to say that. I also teach globalization studies for geography and planning at the university. And my purpose today, and I was so thankful to be invited by one of your students that you mentioned at the beginning, to participate, is I manage external grant opportunities for students, for undergrads, grad students through PhD, outside of SUNY Albany. So for the purposes of this session, and I want to say up front, and I apologize if I jump back and forth when I'm talking about Fulbright or critical language scholarship, there's just a lot of information about them, and these grants are very particular to the individual that's applying for them. So it's really hard to give a very detailed general overview of what they are. So the U.S. Student Fulbright Program is a State Department funded program, facilitated and administered by the Institute for International Education, which is in New York City. And I'm SUNY Albany's Fulbright Program Advisor. So if any of you are SUNY Albany undergrads, if you're a junior or a senior, you could actually make an appointment with me to talk about Fulbright a little bit more to your individual interests. But if you're a freshman or sophomore, you can definitely keep this information in your back pocket and contact me, as you're beginning your junior year at UAlbany, because the cycle of this grant works far ahead of what we think is normal. Right now, the cycle that's open is AY22. So if you're graduated by spring 22, you can apply now to go abroad for academic year 22. So it's a little tricky sometimes, depending on your graduation date or your anticipated graduation. But it's definitely something you want to think about. Fulbright, and I'm going to show you the website in a second, related to Southeast Asian languages and countries and what types of grants you can apply for. But it's a fully funded grant. So there's no financial hardship associated, and all of the grants actually that I manage are fully funded. So the two requirements for Fulbright are that you hold a bachelor's degree by the time the grant commences. So you have that bachelor's in hand by fall 22. And you're a US citizen. All of my programs that I manage are only for US citizens, which always hurts me a little bit to say, because I manage our international exchange partnerships. So I work with international students as well. But for this purpose, it really is unfortunately, just US citizens. And I'm going to share my screen, and I had CLS, now I've got to find Fulbright. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I clicked on the East Asia Pacific interactive map for you students to look at. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grants available for Fulbright. The tricky piece is that you can only apply for one grant to one country. So the types of awards are English teaching assistantships, which you are essentially an assistant teacher, instructor in a classroom with a regular teacher. Part-time, some of the grants are a little bit more than 20 hours a week. You don't need to write curriculum, you don't need to be in education or have a career goal of being a teacher or working and getting TESOL certification or anything like that. They do accept students from all backgrounds. Now, I don't know if most of you are political science majors or globalization or thinking about that. That was my background as well. I was political science and international diplomacy. And I started working for the UN, and working in that context really enlightened me to a lot of issues globally. And I feel that the Fulbright program, through any of the grants, really helps you become a better global citizen and really opens your eyes to the process of globalization, and that it doesn't affect developing countries as well as it does developed countries. So I always like to throw that in too, to get you thinking about, stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit. So on the Fulbright website, you'll see there's a lot of drop-down menus. There's a ton of information about getting started. And like I started to mention, the ETAs. There also are study research grants that are open. Typically, it's graduate students and PhD students applying for study research grants, but some countries will allow undergraduates to apply. If you feel you have a strong proposal, or you're working with one of your professors and you're crafting something that you want to take abroad, and there's a distinct reason for that, we can certainly talk about it. I always will defer to your academic department and your advisor on that. But there's also fully funded master's programs now that Fulbright is offering, which are gaining a lot of attention. I have a number of students this cycle that are already looking into applying for fully funded master's programs all over the world. There's a lot in the UK, but there's a ton in Taiwan, and you're kind of sprouting up little by little. I think it's like the third cycle that they've been offering it. So generally, those are the three types of awards you can apply for. There are some awards, and it's hard to capture the essence of all of them in a situation like this. It's easier with one-on-one, but if you have a very particular focus, if you have a very particular idea of what you want to do, like your trajectory is moving towards this, full time, academically, professionally, write it down, talk to me about it, make an appointment, because I want to know, what your interests are. So I went to the East Asia Pacific so you could see all of the countries that offer grants. Now, some of them offer only study research. A lot of them offer ETAs. Now, I know some of these countries are not in this particular region, but they're all kind of lumped together. And I know maybe Professor Weihsin and other my colleagues here who are experts in this region might disagree with Fulbright and how they categorize the countries, but this is what they have there, and you can click on them. And I know we have been talking about Indonesia as well. There's 35 ETA awards this cycle for Indonesia, which is pretty good, and 15 open study research awards. Their commission there in Indonesia has always been very fluid in explaining how much they love to have Americans there to, share culture, learn from each other. You give a lot, but you also receive a lot when you're performing these grants. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind. If you are interested, say, in ETA, and I'm using this as an example with Indonesia, you click on it. It tells you, obviously a bachelor's degree. Typically when their grant period starts, then they give an award profile. And the award profile is very important because you want to make sure that you're eligible, like you qualify to apply. The majority, especially in this region, grants, you don't need to have language ability in the nation's language. They sometimes will say it would be great if you had a little bit, some novice experience with the language, or you can present that in your statement of purpose that you're going to be taking a course or working with a tutor or doing an online program to gain familiarity with the language. So you can read through every single one of these countries and what they're offering. They even do a candidate profile, which is nice as well. What kind of person they're looking for. If you're allowed to do like a community service engagement piece, which is very important to Fulbright, you can do a supplementary project, see not required foreign language proficiency, but they give lots of links here for you to learn. Critical Language Enhancement Award is for some grants, and that's very individualized. So that's something that I can talk to you about. They talk about housing arrangements, placement types. This one's in secondary school, which is really neat. Placement sites for Fulbright grants for ETAs can vary from preschool through university. All Columbia's ETAs are university. So it just depends on the country. And I just want to take a step back for a moment and mention, and I know Christian was, talking about this at the beginning too, about study abroad programming being suspended, everything that we've been going through, working in international education has been really tough and I know everyone's having a tough time, but with all of our outgoing programming being canceled, exchange students, international students getting stuck, Fulbright obviously brought everyone home that was in grant last March and April. Then academic year 20, it still moved forward in terms of applications and review, et cetera. So for academic year 20, UAlbany had 3 Fulbright awards. We had 3 ETA awards, 1 to Taiwan, 1 to Colombia, and 1 to Belgium, which was super, super exciting. They were paused because of COVID, obviously, but my ETA grantee to Taiwan was notified with like 2 weeks notice that she was getting on a plane January 1st. Taiwan has done a really good job with COVID and it's pretty good there. So she left on January 1st and I don't remember the name of she's in a small island actually, not in mainland Taiwan, like closer to China, I think. And she's teaching she has like 15 students that she's teaching. She loves it. She's having an amazing time. And they extended her Fulbright time, which is amazing. So it works, it does happen. My Colombia, Belgium, I don't know, they're on pause. They hopefully will leave in September. We'll see. And then I had for academic year 21, another Belgium ETA. So we're moving forward as if everything is normal. What I want everyone to realize when they're thinking about external grants and they're thinking about gathering, information to apply is if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get it. These are very competitive grants, but we are competitive as a Research One institution. I'm your Fulbright advisor and your critical language advisor and your Boren advisor, and I work with you from beginning to end on your application. So you're not alone in this, and you have incredible faculty and staff that assist me and my faculty committee and writing recommendation letters and critiquing research proposals where I am not an expert, so I'm not going to do that kind of thing. And it, especially now where we really don't know sometimes month to month what things are going to be like. And some of you may be feeling challenged about what am I going to do, when I graduate, how am I going to find a job? And, things like that. Applying for grants is a great idea because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're kind of, putting yourself out there to see what's possible. So I want to switch over. I hope I'm not going over time. I want to switch over really quick to critical language scholarship. Meredith, do I have time?
You have about 2 or 3 more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to stop my share for this, and I am going to go pull up my critical language scholarship because I think this is really important too, especially given the nature of this meeting. So the critical language scholarship is also a State Department, US citizens, but you can be a freshman all the way through PhD to apply. This application does not open until September. So I typically start doing a lot of outreach in the summer to students, and these are the languages that CLS is offering. Now, CLS is a fully funded language immersion program. It commences in the summer, so it doesn't interfere with semesters. And most of these languages you don't need to have any background in whatsoever, none whatsoever. Some of them you do need to have 2 or 4 semesters of the language to apply. And it's wonderful. I have a CLS award for summer 21 to Korea, and she's actually going. They're pretty much almost sure that the Korea program is going to run in person, which is great. Last year we had one for Azerbaijani and he got paused. So we're hopeful. I can definitely talk to you all more regarding CLS. It's a comprehensive application, but not as much as Fulbright. And I'll be happy to talk with anyone, especially freshmen, to think about acquiring language skills, because that's what the federal government is looking for. They're looking for people that have critical language skills. Yeah, and there's a ton of information here, so I'll stop there, and I'm sorry I ran over.
That's all right. For those who are not from SUNY Albany, know that your university will have someone in a counterpart position. And if you can't figure out who that person is, hopefully Jacqueline may be able to help identify who her counterpart is at your institution. But the websites and the information are going to be the same. So thanks so much. All right, moving on to Weihsin.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen as well. Okay. That's great. So I'd like to introduce myself quickly. My name is Weihsin. I am an Associate Professor of English and the current Director and Graduate Faculty Advisor of the Southeast Asian Studies Program at the University of California at Riverside. As I begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the University of California at Riverside is located on the lands of the Cahuilla, Tongva, Luiseño, and Serrano peoples. And I would also like to thank the New York Southeast Asia Network Public University Consortium, and in particular, Jeffrey Nasri and Zheng Wang for inviting me to this panel and also for organizing all the logistics for this event. So I'm just going to briefly introduce the Southeast Asian Studies Program at UC Riverside. Officially, we are known as Southeast Asia Text, Ritual, and Performance, going by the really cool acronym of CTRIP. And I'll explain more about that in a bit, right? We were created in 2002, and our program offers an MA in Southeast Asian Studies, an MA PhD track where you go from the Southeast Asian Studies MA into the PhD programs in anthropology, comparative literature, or history. And we also offer what we call a designated emphasis, which is essentially a certificate in Southeast Asian Studies. Now on the slide, you can see the website for our program. And I'm not going to go into the details of the MA PhD track certificate requirements because you can find that information on our website. You can also see my email address at the bottom of the slide. So please feel free to contact me if you have any questions about our program or about what we offer in terms of academics. So when I was contacted to speak on this panel, I think Jeffrey Nasri asked me to address two specific questions. The first one is, what do I think are the relative benefits of studying in a Southeast Asia specific program versus studying Southeast Asia within a discipline? And I've come up with a few general points that I could elaborate on later in the question and answer session, right, in the Q&A session. The first thing that I think is beneficial is that in joining a Southeast Asia Studies program, you are with a group of like-minded people with similar regional interests. And here I'm thinking not just of faculty or professors, but also graduate students, also other postdoctoral fellows, librarians, and other research and teaching staff who share similar interests in Southeast Asia. So that's one big plus, I think. Whereas if you were joining a department or discipline or program, you might be the only person working on Southeast Asia there. That was my case back when I was a graduate student, and I'll say more about that in a bit. The second benefit that goes along with having a group of like-minded people working on Southeast Asia is that you immediately have access to resources, contacts, and networks, right, both in the United States and internationally. And I think this particular NY Southeast Asia Studies Network is a good example of that. And third, intellectually, I think the benefit of being in a Southeast Asian Studies program is that we are all actively involved in rethinking or reshaping what Southeast Asia as a term, as a kind of regional construct means, right? And in my case, my program does this from a kind of multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary angle, right? How can we problematize, challenge, reshape, rethink what Southeast Asia means? What kinds of texts, narratives, and images construct Southeast Asia, and how can we work with them, right? So a Southeast Asian Studies program can offer us these insights in ways that may not be available within a discipline or department that has more fixed, right, or more narrow notions of what Southeast Asia is. I mean, I'll just elaborate a bit, right? I think we often like to say that the term Southeast Asia is a historical construct of the Western world. You can take your pick when that construct was created, whether it's a product of 19th century European colonialism or, World War II or Cold War, a geographical or regional construct, right? But what also needs to be stressed, and we do so in my program, is that Southeast Asia is still being actively constructed and debated here and now in the present time in ways that kind of break away from these earlier colonial and Cold War constructions. And, depending on what disciplines are involved, Southeast Asia can look very different and mean very different things. And here, I'll just share my own personal anecdotes, right? From my own graduate school career. I mentioned at the beginning that I'm in the Department of English. I've been in English departments all my life, right? Both as a student and then now as faculty. So, 20 years ago, when I was in graduate school, I found that English departments in the United States think of Southeast Asia in very specific terms, right? When English departments think of Southeast Asian literature, it's almost always as a subset of Asian American literature, and specifically, literature by Filipino American or Vietnamese American authors because of the legacy of US imperialism, right, in the region. The fact that I wanted to work on literature in English from Malaysia and Singapore, right, authors from Malaysia and Singapore who were writing in English, it simply wasn't legible to my graduate program back then. It wasn't legible within the broader rubric or field of post-colonial or global literature. It certainly wasn't visible in terms of Southeast Asian literature as English departments 20 years ago understood it. Now I think things have changed a bit more, but 20 years ago when I was a graduate student, it wasn't possible to focus on literature in English from Malaysia and Singapore, which is what I do now as a faculty member, right? So that's what I mean when I say that depending on your discipline or department, certain disciplines or departments might think of Southeast Asia in very specific ways, whereas in a Southeast Asian Studies program, I think there is much more interest in sort of blurring those boundaries or reshaping what Southeast Asia means or can be or has been or can be. And I'd also like to talk about C-TRIP, right, my own program at UCR, and that in the sense that we are very arts, humanities, and social sciences focused program, or rather I should say that our focus in the arts, humanities, and social sciences comes from a kind of cultural studies and diaspora perspective. So Southeast Asian Studies, C-TRIP at UCR, has faculty members in anthropology, history, sociology, ethnic studies, music, gender and sexuality studies, creative writing, and of course, I'm in English, right? I think one important distinction of our program is that we consider the Southeast Asian migrant and diasporic communities around the world as important parts of Southeast Asia, not just as extensions of their homelands or as ethnic minority communities in their hostlands, right? And here I can give two anecdotes, right? You can see on the slide, the image on the left is the cover of a special issue of the journal Antipodes about Southeast Asian and Australian literary and cultural connections that I recently co-edited, and that was published in January of this year. So there are large Southeast Asian diasporic communities in Australia and New Zealand, right, the Antipodes, but they aren't really examined by North American-based Southeast Asian studies programs, at least not to my knowledge. And certainly the poetry, the fiction, right, the comics that come out of Southeast Asian, Australian communities and producers isn't studied in North America. So that I think was my contribution to the field that wouldn't necessarily that is made possible, right, by my by the cultural studies approach that we have at UCR C-TRIP. On the right is the call for papers for our upcoming graduate student conference, which is happening on 14th to 15th of May, just in of this year, in a few weeks, right? We have a very active graduate student community, and they've done our MA and designated emphasis or certificate students have put in a tremendous effort to organize this conference. And we have two keynote speakers, right? Dr. Nancy Kwok from UC San Diego, who's a historian and urban studies scholar. We also have a second keynote speaker, Jay Carlin, right, who is a dancer and choreographer. So our choice, right, or the graduate student's choice of these two keynote speakers, right, an academic, a historian and urban studies scholar, and a performer, a dancer and choreographer, I think reflects our program's double emphasis, not only on academic scholarship, but also on the performing arts. And I'll finish my short presentation by trying to address the second question that Jeffrey Nasri posed to me, which is, can I give some suggestions about how to submit a strong application to a Southeast Asian Studies program like the one at UC Riverside? The 3 points I want to talk about. First is to understand the difference between the statement of purpose or the research statement, and then the personal or the diversity statement. So one thing that we've often found, the sort of graduate admissions committee for our program, we've often found that some students, write in the statement of purpose that they are of Southeast Asian ancestry or heritage, they're second or third generation Southeast Asian American, and because of that, they want to learn more about Southeast Asia, and that's why they are applying to the program. Now, unfortunately, that's not what should go into a statement of purpose. That will work perfectly well in the personal and diversity statement. Right? I'm not downplaying, I'm not saying that this identity, this heritage, this background is not important, but that should go in the personal diversity statement. The statement of purpose, right? We do remember that you're applying to an academic program, not a cultural immersion or cultural enrichment program, right? So the statement of purpose or the research statement should really reflect, your plans to do research, to work in our academic program. There should be a regional or country focus, a proposed project for research. And this is especially important if the program requires a thesis or a kind of independent research project for the MA. Right now, our Southeast Asian Studies program requires that you write a thesis in your second year in order to obtain the master's. So your statement of purpose should reflect your preparation or your ideas, right, for doing this sort of major independent research. The second thing I want to talk about also, relates to the statement of purpose, which is please do look up the program's website and information and reflect that in your application, right? So the CTRIPS website is on the slides, and we have a list of our faculty who are involved in the program, as well as their research areas and research interests. And this applies to any Southeast Asian Studies program or graduate program in general, right? In your statement of purpose, it's very helpful to name 1 to 3 faculty members whom you could envision yourself working with if you were accepted into the program, right? I could give, again, a quick anecdote. We had one application this year for somebody who wanted to work on international relations. And unfortunately, we have no faculty members in our program who work on international relations. So this person wasn't a good fit with us, right? And I would encourage, naming not just 1, but 2 or 3 faculty members, because when we see those names mentioned in the statement of purpose, we do forward them to those faculty members who have been named and asked, hey, would you have a look at this file? Even if the professors are not on the admissions committee, we forward them, the files to them and ask, could you have a look at this application and let us know if you think you could work with this student if they are admitted, right? So that's important to do your homework and reflect your knowledge of the program in your statement of purpose. And finally, the writing sample, which is very important, right? It should be connected to Southeast Asia and tie in some way with your statement of purpose or your proposed research that you plan to do in our program. Unfortunately, we do get a few applications every year that don't include a writing sample, even though we require that on our website as part of the application. So not including that really hurts your chances of getting in. So I hope this is informative. I'm happy to answer more questions during the Q&A. Thank you.
Terrific, thanks. And I have to say that the tips on are relevant for pretty much any graduate program. Really great advice. All right, with that, we turn to Eric Jones.
Well, thanks, Meredith, and everyone, the speakers for this this is a wealth of information that I plan on steering my own students towards for insight and advice. Yeah, so some of, I was asked to talk about pursuing your interest in Southeast Asian studies as an undergraduate. So some of what, I'll take a maybe more holistic approach and maybe a bit autobiographical. But I think it shows if I can pursue an interest professionally, then you definitely can in Southeast Asian Studies. I'm the director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies here. But sort of I like to joke, I was raised in the 19th century. I grew up on a ranch in Wyoming, rural Wyoming. And when I say rural Wyoming, it was very out of the way. And my first point is about sort of doing your homework in the region. Like, get excited about for me, it was, show how old I am. It was National Geographic magazines, right? Now you have the internet. You can actually, but becoming curious and interested as a way for preparing, like exciting your interest. So you might not be at a place that has maybe the exact specialty you want to work on or the exact area of study, but you can have access to great information there. And so by really mining that, going deep, whether or not you have an area studies concentration, and you have networks like this and the NRC and others are full of people who are interested and can lead you to other places. I would your own network's website and other, especially centers for Southeast Asian Studies, tend to have good networks about if you're interested in you're suggesting reading lists, suggesting other things. So I guess that's the first thing, is to do that. And now with the advent of the internet, you can actually sort of get a decent sense of what you're up for, what you can expect. Your own fearless leader Meredith was on a podcast. There's other media. I'll plug our electoral politics podcast, or Southeast Asia Crossroads. So there are a lot of media out there that you can get involved and engaged in. The second is you heard from many of the speakers about study abroad and studying, travel to the region. There's no single more important way, a vehicle for stimulating your interest and engagement and intellectual curiosity in the region than going there. So find a way to go there, and there are ways you can do that through again through the one advantage of doing through like a study abroad program is that can be subsidized through your tuition and student loan, and in places, especially at state universities, it's not as expensive as you think if you calculate out the number of credit hours, and it's actually very high that you get in for summers of work if you stayed back home and paid rent and expenses, etc. And I think everyone here would raise their hand, and every professional would say, like, those international experiences make all the difference in terms of what makes you look interesting to employers, what makes you look you're able to navigate complicated situations. Like the travel component is so high, and you guys, the region is so great. Like it is I have colleagues who study much colder, more foreboding places, and they always joke that you look like you're on vacation. Like, well, you're the dummy that didn't choose places that are where the food is great, the weather is warm, the people are nice and engaging, and so going to the region is key, and also for so many of us, whatever you think the region going there will open your mind. Like for me, I didn't even know I wanted to be a historian until I the day after graduated high school went to Indonesia, and I had never been anywhere more than a day's journey from my home, and it was overwhelming and amazing. But I was at the world's largest Buddhist monument in the world's largest Islamic country on my first day, and just thinking, I got to understand what's happening here. Like, how is this possible? I've never even heard of this. So the questions that Southeast Asia will help you. What you might have a developed field of study, but that's going to let the region inform you, and there's no better way to get involved. Engage with mentors who bring excitement and encouragement for the study of your region. You've got a good panel here, and you've got I would say almost anyone who works on Southeast Asia is probably fits this description of who is an advocate for of getting out there and going to the region. So find those people, and they will be cheerleaders for you. They're interested in the region and they're excited. Heritage students, heritage communities of Southeast Asians here in the United States are places go visit those communities, those restaurants, temples, civic organizations. They love to have visitors. They're very inviting and just curious that you're curious, and very likely to welcome you in. As your first presenter, Jinda mentioned, the language is really a key to unlocking the region. Immerse yourself in the language and culture of the region, and that not only as an undergraduate, but as a graduate student, that will help you immensely. And I would also add that the experience of learning Southeast Asian languages is it's a very inviting region to practice, to be a language learner. I also had the experience of being a language learner in the Netherlands, and there's a pretty stark difference between the encouragement level that that you have as a language learner there in Southeast Asia versus other places in the world. I mean, they're fine, but Southeast Asians are notoriously encouraging and accommodating to language learners, and will laugh along with you with your sort of mistakes, and are very happy to sort of let you in. And the kind of incredible, there are some visitors to East Asia, for example, Japan, who say that, like my brother was one of them. He's a Japanist and fluent Japanese, and he never felt like he was let inside the culture. It always an outsider, and I think you'll find probably the exact opposite in Southeast Asia. You'll want to be pulled in by them and invited into their families, into their homes, into their world. And so language is a key to do that. And so there are lots of ways to get at that, and I would encourage you to pursue those. And then also study outside of your field. Southeast Asia is one of the most refreshing and richly interdisciplinary regional studies programs in the world. There is just an assumption among us that people need to read widely and are literate across history, political science, anthropology, other disciplines outside of your own countries, outside of your own area of interest. And a lot of this stems from the fact that we are often called on, like today, like I work in Indonesia, but journalists will say, like, what do you think about Myanmar? And again, I'll try to steer them to, true Myanmar experts, but we're asked so often to speak to things outside of our field. And while we wish there were, 40 people at every university who did every facet of Southeast Asia, there's of course not. And so this is a real asset, just being intellectually curious and having a sense of what is going on in contemporary, like as a historian, but thinking about contemporary Southeast Asia, and contemporary Southeast Asians need to know the other fields, the other disciplines, and those methodologies inform our own and make it, I think, much more widely legible and engaged across, and it's sort of inherently interdisciplinary. That's a true asset of our field. And then finally, and this event is an exhibit of that, but take advantage of a new era of cooperation among Southeast Asia study centers. It's not that they were adversarial at all before, but everyone was sort of doing their own thing. And I think if there's anything that came out of the last 4 years of politics in the United States, it was the existential worry that what if support vanished completely? And so that, among with other forces, I think, thought us to be thinking collaboratively and engaged. And so there are SILC, the Language Consortium, our contributions to SEASI, there's graduate education colloquia and consortiums are at work across centers and non-centers. And I think there's a sense of, and as we watch faculty positions in Southeast Asian studies become threatened at places that that marshaling resources and working together becomes a high priority. And so I encourage you to reach out to other professors and faculty at other institutions, and maybe with the introduction of one of your mentors that you know locally, and seek that advice and that encouragement. I mean, I've got a lot more to say, but maybe I'll turn it over, and it's maybe time to get to some questions. And thank you for the invitation.
Great, thank you so much, and thanks to all our presenters. I will echo something that Eric said, which is that we're pretty much always recruiting a Southeast Asianists. We want people to study the region, so don't feel shy about approaching people for encouragement or some support to find ways to study Southeast Asia, to get to Southeast Asia, and so forth. And on that note, I'll reiterate for those who arrived late to the Zoom, we will be posting these recordings, these panel recordings, online on our PUC website. And from your signing up for the event, you have that website. And so do feel free to come back to this or to refer it to other students. We recognize that anything on Zoom is hard to get to at the time that it's set to happen. So that's fine, you'll have another opportunity. All right, so I will kick things off while we let people think of questions with, I have two really, and I'm not sure to whom best to direct these, but the first would be, this is really perhaps for Christian or Jacqueline, but Christian, I noticed on the list of study abroad opportunities that you had, I can't remember if it was the virtual page or the other page, that there were some internships. And so I was wondering if either you or somebody else could speak to the possibility of virtual or in person, depending on the year, summer or other internship opportunities within Southeast Asia, or in other regions as well, if it's more of a generic issue. And then the second question I would have would be relating to something Eric just said about the new opportunities for an openness to networking and new consortia and so forth, which for those of us who are at schools without Southeast Asian Studies centers, but with high levels of student interest, are just so fantastic to hear about. I'm wondering if there are any either good source resources, websites or otherwise to find out, or if you know of schools that are really pioneering this, that will continue to have post-COVID online synchronous language classes, online synchronous Southeast Asia related classes, or online asynchronous. But basically most students at a CUNY or SUNY school, whatever their department, there probably isn't a Southeast Asianist in that department. There are only, there are a few of us in any given institution at most. And so I'm wondering, what's the most efficient way now moving forward, now that more stuff has moved online, to find courses either that for which students can apply that year-long Southeast Asian language grant possibility, or classes that they might take to gain deeper immersion into Southeast Asia during the academic terms, if they can't do study abroad. Are there ways to pursue those interests? And whoever wants to just jump in. Yeah.
I'll just start with the internship question. So once again, let's pretend COVID's not happening or something, I don't know. There's virtual internships for sure. And I think maybe the one that you may have seen was a virtual internship that's happening through an organization called CRCC Asia in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I will pop that link into the chat so you guys can see it. This is a partnership that Buffalo State College has, and it was listed in the virtual study abroad listing that I showed earlier. Those are probably here to stay. So for those, and I think they're great. They definitely serve a need, accessibility wise. Financially, it's a lot cheaper to stay home than to travel halfway around the world. But and also, if done right, you really can get a great exposure to the culture and the people and the issues on the ground there. So they're out there. Talk to your study abroad advisor. Generally speaking, real in-person internships are also available. I like to kind of group them, even though they're not the same thing, but with service learning, where you're going and doing service in the community as well. There's a lot of those opportunities also. The program I was kind of plugging, the COIL Global Commons, is probably more in that realm. You're not really interning with the organization on the ground, but you are working with them and kind of providing a a product for them at the end. It's kind of a mix. But yeah, that stuff is definitely available throughout Southeast Asia and throughout the world. I would just say it's been a while since I worked on a campus, so I can't speak specifically to any except for the one that I will pop in the chat. But by all means, talk to your study abroad advisors because they're definitely available and a great opportunity for students for sure.
Yeah, I'll very quickly defer everything that Christian said, completely right, especially talking to your study abroad advisor. I also have a colleague at SUNY Albany in my office, Annette Ritchie, that manages internship opportunities for students. And I believe she's also working on, virtual ones as well. So if any of you are Albany students, please shoot me an email and I'll put you in touch with Annette.
Maybe Meredith, I'll say a bit about the course and training resources. So one advantage of COVID is that everyone now realizes that they can teach online, and so there's a much higher likelihood that there will be online courses that are available. And so one thing I would encourage to do is if you go to I'll speak from the NRC's, the National Resource Centers, and there are many other places that teach Southeast Asia courses, but those are the easiest. If you go to the Centers for Southeast Asian Studies websites, all of them have course listings, and you'll be able to see which ones are online. So one possibility would be to hunt them that way, to say like, okay, there's that course, I can actually fit that one, because we've noticed there will be many more offerings now online than there were in the past because of this. And the other thing I will say is that I can't promise because it will be on a case-by-case basis. However, there are I'm one of those examples. Like if I have an online course and a student wants to audit the course, but if it's virtual and then they're willing to figure out credit back home at their home institution for an independent study. So because often that's where it grinds to a halt, right? They need to like figure out how to work transfer credits, and they're trying to pay for a course, and it's super expected and unexpected, unmanageable. This might be have your sort of a faculty mentor help broker this question though of it doesn't hurt to ask those faculty member if they're willing to have a guest student there, and the credit could be handled back at your home institution, which would make it much smoother and easier. I know I would be willing to do that for my online course. That I don't have one coming in the fall, but and I think others would as well. So that's one option. But you could also, of course, if that course exists online, you could just sign up for it if you want to pay at that university and sign up for it.
Weihsin or Jinda, do either of you want to add anything? No obligation.
Just that for language study, I would encourage you, if you're interested in studying during the academic year and don't have Southeast Asian language classes at your home university, to go to soap.wis.edu. I just put it in the chat. You don't have to attend CIASI in order to apply for the partial tuition reimbursement to study during the academic year, although students are very strongly encouraged to in order to get some background in the language. Yeah, the opportunity is out there.
Okay.
I really don't have anything to add except to say that our graduate students at UCR in C-TRIP in Southeast Asian Studies have benefited from the language courses offered by your various programs and institutions, because we don't really have a lot of Southeast Asian Studies language instructors in our at our university.
Yeah, right. And it is a benefit of COVID that there was already innovation, especially in teaching languages, to offer them online. A couple of schools have been doing that for some time now, but it does seem that they're, now that we've all been forced to learn how to teach hybrid courses or online courses, that some of those may stay. And, it is also possible, Eric's point about asking permission to sit in on a course and get credit elsewhere is a good idea. And also, even if it's an in-person course, it's again, we are always, those of us who work on Southeast Asia are pretty much always trying to recruit. So it's possible that somebody may allow you still to Zoom in, even if the class is otherwise in person. It can't hurt to ask. Okay. And thanks for, there are a wealth of links now in the chat. Okay, other questions from the floor, or I can also ask if any of the panelists have either more you wanted to say or questions for each other, maybe issues that you've encountered with students or that you know people are likely to ask or have in their mind when they're watching this online afterwards. Okay, I'll commandeer the floor again for a moment then to ask. So one of the key questions, given that this is a panel focused largely on the undergraduate experience and how to develop as a Southeast Asianist as an undergrad, or how to explore a heritage related to Southeast Asia as an undergrad. If you had, and this may be especially for Weihsin and Eric, but if you had some key guidelines for what, if an undergraduate is really trying to prioritize how much to do as an undergraduate and what is better left to graduate study, you know, some issues of language training and so forth, you know, what would you most advise prioritizing as an undergraduate, especially bearing in mind that some may come to realize that they're interested in Southeast Asia, perhaps in their junior or senior year, not early in their program. Are there any rules of thumb or things that will especially help them with a graduate application later if they've done that as an undergraduate, or are there things that, you know, you find in practice students may not have time really to pick up on as a master's student?
So for our graduate admissions, right, we do stress that language acquisition for the master's program is required. It is something that can be done during the first year of the MA program. Our MA program is 2 years, right, where we generally expect the student to finish the coursework requirements in the first year and then start working on their independent research and thesis in the second year. We understand that some applicants may not have the required language proficiency when they apply. As Meredith, you said, they may only discover that they really want to do graduate work in Southeast Asian studies in their junior or senior year, right? And we then encourage them to make time during the first year or over the summer between the first and second year to take intensive language courses like the ones that have been linked and brought up in on this panel to acquire that required that language proficiency. So I would say that, you know, in terms of work that they will want to do is to really focus on, you know, a senior thesis or capstone project that they could then use as a writing sample or a senior essay or something like that, that can go into the application as a writing sample and that they can refer to in their statement of purpose as work that they've sort of, you know, groundwork that they've laid for whatever they want to do at a graduate level, and also something that their letters, the professors writing their letters of recommendation can also refer to. I didn't bring this up in my presentation, but we also, you know, do put emphasis on the letters of recommendation and to see if the letters of recommendation match, you know, the students' stated interest in Southeast Asian studies. And, you know, having that important capstone project or senior thesis or senior essay as, you know, a good example of the intellectual work and academic preparation and as a sort of a starting point for the work they want to do in our graduate program really does help, right? Our language acquisition can be done in the first year over the summer between the first and second year of our program. That's from our perspective.
Yeah, and maybe I'll add, and we'll start with the ideal. The ideal would be that you've been to Southeast Asia, you have, you know, taken intensive years of language training, and you know the material, you have some sense of the field, and you're engaging scholars at a particular university for a graduate program who work on your specific area questions. So I mean that would be the ideal, right? But it's still possible. Like I had several colleagues that have had several students since who say, I can think one in graduate school with me who he studied French and he was interested in Cambodia and had not studied Khmer, had not studied, but as they looked at his application, they, you know, the faculty member said like, okay, the likelihood is actually most of the archives are in French that he'll need to be using, one, and he has demonstrated excellence in a language. It's likely to think in one language. It's likely to think he would be able to do that for a second one. And so those tendencies are there, right? So you can see that. I had a student who had Spanish, didn't have any training in the Philippines, but was interested in doing the Spanish colonial. And so that was like, okay, that's again, those are good signs. They already have a familiarity with thematically sort of imperialism. They already in the New World in Spain, and and Spanish will be useful to them in some of the archives on the Philippines. And so there are sort of proximate Venn diagram kind of, you think about like ways that that what you've already done. And so some of it can be that if, think of it from the other side of the table, right? Think of it from the faculty member and the committee letting you in. They're thinking like, is this a good investment? What is the likelihood that this person will finish, has a strong, and that's, they have a strong focused, like, I'm interested in these questions, and I'm interested in, and part of that is really getting a good mentor as an undergraduate to help you vet your statement of purpose and your letters, so that you're speaking in the sort of the vernacular of a graduate student, and you can target your questions probably. And so reading that, the faculty member said, like, this person has really interesting questions, that has a high aptitude and likelihood to be able to pull off what he or she wants to do. Therefore, let's, if they don't have the language there, and I would also finally add, have a plan for that. Say like, I'm going to go to Cambodia after my first year of the MA, and I'm going to enroll in CIASI, and then I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. And like, so that's often a good indication that they're serious about it. They're not just saying this, but they've thought it through.
If I may, I was one of those people who was a junior before they realized Southeast Asia was a place you could study. I was studying abroad in Australia, actually, when I was first sort of introduced to the region more intensely. And that's when I started focusing my studies on Southeast Asia instead of Australia while I was there, but that was okay. And I gotta say, if anyone is watching this, right, anyone's here right now or watching this later, you're already on the right track, right? Like, this is amazing. This organization is so great. I don't think it existed in its current sense when I was an undergrad. And I fell sort of, pardon the term, ass backwards into this. I was at Albany doing my graduate degree. I worked at SUNY. It was inexpensive, free for me. And I happened upon Professor Weihsin, was like, oh my God, there's a Southeast Asian specialist here. This is amazing. So having a plan is way better than what I did. So I would definitely endorse that.
Well, you had a good mentor, so yeah.
It helped a lot. It sure did. And, you had mentioned, I think it was you, Eric, that said, like, if you could get there as an undergrad, get to that part of the world, that'd be fabulous. Not to steal Jackie's thunder here, but I worked a little bit with our Fulbright applicants at New Paltz as well. And we would have students come to us and say, I want to do a Fulbright, I'm not quite sure what to do. And we would look, and there's these English teaching assistantships that, for whatever reason, they were looking for like hundreds of them in Malaysia. And we'd be like, look, your odds are way higher of getting one of these. And what about Malaysia? And especially if a student is actually interested in Southeast Asia, even better. But look for that kind of thing, because it's a fully funded program. I mean, you're not necessarily there to study Southeast Asian, studies. You're there to teach English, but it's inevitable. You're living there for 6 to 12 months. So keep your eyes peeled for those sorts of opportunities too.
I just want to echo, oh, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to echo what everybody's been saying, for everybody, but also especially for heritage students. I'm a Thai heritage student myself. I was lucky enough to be born in Wisconsin, wound up at UW-Madison for undergrad, where they have Thai language courses. But I think for me, I definitely took my heritage for granted, didn't think critically about it. and studying the language, learning how to read and write really opened up a whole new world of thinking critically, being able to connect, you know, with the language and the culture in a deeper level, but also be able to think critically about what it means to be Thai American or Southeast Asian American. And then in terms of going there, I moved to Thailand. I studied teaching English to speakers of other languages as my minor in college. I definitely recommend that if you're able to, or I think there's some online classes you can do as well. It's great if you have the opportunity to move to Southeast Asia, both as a heritage or a non-heritage person, to get that connection. I moved there the week after I graduated from college and lived there for 2 years. And I think it's really, I can't put into words how valuable of an experience I think it was to be able to live there as a person, as a Southeast Asian American in Southeast Asia. It's definitely a different perspective, and again, got me thinking more critically about my background and encouraged me to apply to grad school and get that master's in Southeast Asian studies. And yeah, just to take advantage of any resources that you have available for you.
And I'll second that by saying, if you can find, like, I noticed, because my son is going to be doing this in the fall, but he's going to be attending university, just regular university in Southeast Asia. And I was shocked about it. Like, it is a fraction of the cost of an American university. So spending an academic year, not just a study abroad summer program, but or maybe both. But consider that as well. There are programs where, depending on your language ability or lack thereof, you could still, they have engaging in it. They're all across Southeast Asia. There are universities that have these. So they're very excited to have foreign students there. And so for probably a fraction of what you're paying at your American university, you could spend a year. And you know, many of those courses are transferable, especially in these exchange programs, because they want them to be, they want students to take these courses. So that's also a way to just get there, and you know, the exponential jump you'll make once you're in country can't be overstated.
If I can just jump in just for a second, if that's okay, I wanted to say I love listening to Jinda talk about her experience as a heritage speaker, and then moving there and learning more. I think that is really great. And also what Christian was mentioning about undersubscribed countries. Most of the countries, yes, for Fulbright and CLS are very much undersubscribed in terms of applicants. And IIE is consistently asking us as FPAs to try to recruit really good students to apply for these grants. So I think it's definitely worth your while to look at statistics on the Fulbright website, which is at the bottom of the homepage, and kind of weigh your options that way. If you want to just do a Fulbright, if you want to gain international experience, if that folds in well to your plans, then these countries are definitely where you should be looking.
Yeah, John?
Sure. So I want to thank everyone for the incredible insights. I'm wondering particularly because for example, some of the applications for, say, a FLOS might be some of the first fellowship applications that undergrads are writing since they applied to college. If you could talk a little bit more about what kinds of things are you looking for. So I think applying for a Fulbright or a Boren is one kind of thing. And then what kinds of things are you looking for kind of language applications, in terms specifically looking for scholarship for SIASI or for the academic year partial tuition fellowships?
Sure. So what we look for SIASI for our fellowship applications would mostly be commitment to the region, commitment to the area of study. What are your plans for not only learning the language, but also for your research or career goals in relation to Southeast Asia? At the same time, the focus is on Southeast Asia, but at the same time, for people who are planning to work with Southeast Asian American populations who came over recently and need that language, that's also very valuable. But you have to have a plan that really goes a long way. I believed it was Eric who mentioned, or yeah, I can't remember. I'm so sorry. Everybody's had such great advice. I'm just like super excited, echoing everybody. But having that plan is really fundamental to the fellowship applications. As long as you're able to state clearly why you want to study the language and why it's integral to your future plans.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. I'm going to put out one other question. I'm sorry to have so many coming from me, but I'm wondering if any of you, Jacqueline, you had fantastic information on, for instance, Fulbright and CLS, but I'm wondering if any of you have more information on similar grants available for non-US citizens. And I think even Peace Corps is also limited to US citizens and isn't in all countries in Southeast Asia this time. But or are there any key resources you would recommend non-US citizens go to find resources available? I'm pretty sure, Jinda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that for CIASI and for the language grants, that I'm not sure about the FLAS grants, but I think the ones directly from CIASI, are those open across nationality? I think I should know this, I'm sorry. But otherwise, if anyone else can say more about that.
Yeah, so I can just quickly talk about CIASI. The FLAS fellowships are limited to only US citizens or permanent residents, as well as, I believe, IFLI. Jackie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, about Boren. And then
Boren is US citizens.
Yeah, and then Project Go is limited to ROTC students. So I believe that's also US citizens or permanent residents. But the two scholarships that are offered through CIASI, the Wesley Tuition Scholarship and the CIASI Tuition Scholarship, the full and partial award, those are open to everybody regardless of nationality, citizenship, language level.
Meredith, if I can actually look for, I think we have a resource in our office. Somebody holds it. I have to figure out who that is, for potential scholarships, fellowships, grant opportunities for international students. And I will definitely send that along to you.
Terrific. And we can put that up on our website
Yes.
with this recording then. That'd be great. Yeah. And then in the meantime, we can just ask students who may be non-US citizens or permanent residents who are looking for post-graduation or study abroad or other opportunities, not to get discouraged, to know that there are possibilities out there, and to ask their Jacqueline counterpart if need be. Okay. We have not a lot of time, but we have time for a couple more questions if we have any from the floor or from among the panel. Checking the chat. And if not, knowing that questions will come in, I will remind those who registered and are watching this later, which is a fair number of people, that the registration information you received, the flyer, as well as the Zoom information, has hyperlinks to each of our panelists' websites, which includes their contact information. So you can follow up with questions that way. But I think what we can do then is turn to, if any of you have any final closing remarks, top tips, key advice, encouragement, just 2 minutes that you'd like to get out there before we wrap up, that would be great. And we can just go in the same order in which we went previously.
Ooh, I get to start. Exciting.
Yes.
I just want to emphasize again that language really is a gateway. CIASI is a great opportunity to get in a lot of language study in a short amount of time, and there's funding available. So I really encourage you to apply if you're at all interested. Yeah, language as a gateway.
Terrific. And as a former SIASI attendee from the 90s, I will say it is a life-changing, excellent way to study that language. All right, Christian.
I would echo that. Language is a great gateway. And for those who are devoted to studying abroad and traveling, mobility, real travel, it's accessible. You can find ways to do it. So please find the resources on your campus, find your advisors and tell them how serious you are about it, because it can happen for you. There are scholarships out there. And honestly, for those of you who really do see it as a barrier, because it's a long flight, it's an expensive flight to go to Southeast Asia, that now is the best time to look into these virtual offerings. There's never been more. And like I said, they're not all online classes. There are some really great ones out there. And it looks good on a resume. It's going to make a difference in your studies and in what you learn. And hopefully you can even make a difference in those communities. But again, if you want to travel, you should be able to find a way to do that before your 4 years is up as an undergrad. And at the very least, it's the perfect time to be looking for a virtual program as well.
I'm going to reiterate one thing that I can't remember who said it, but somebody mentioned earlier, maybe Christian, maybe somebody else, not just for undergraduates, but one can also study abroad in grad school. It's also possible. Or the other, what I often, not to draw students away from UCR or NIU, but the other possibility is always finding a master's program overseas, which is such a great way to get overseas in a structured program. And often there are grants available either from that institution or from any of the same sorts of organizations, including, Fulbright also can cover those sorts of studies, but other programs as well. So, all right, back to the actual panel. Next we have Jacqueline.
I just want to say for those of you that are here, and hopefully many people will be able to watch this as well, is to think about stepping outside of your comfort zone and think about the international community as being a local community for you. In this day and age, we really need more of that. And think about grants, fully funded grants, and take a chance. And you may be very, very surprised in a positive way.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to jump in once more just to say that, as an undergraduate, I got completely hooked thanks to a great advisor on Southeast Asia. I applied for grad school, but I'd never been there. And so I didn't even have a passport. So my first time abroad, my first flight, apart from, Mexico and Canada, was on a Fulbright after graduation. So I was lucky enough to get one, but it was just absolutely pivotal in what I ended up doing. I knew I was interested in Southeast Asia, and that was flat out the only way I was going to get there, was if I had a grant that could pay for it and that could make it possible. So it's real people get these grants. Mm-hmm. They have these experiences. So, as maybe as Jacqueline said, you won't get it if you don't apply.
Exactly. Yeah. And now that I know that you had it, I'm gonna call on you for my faculty committee.
A long time ago. Okay. Weihsin.
Speaking of Fulbrights, one of our UCR Southeast Asian Studies student who did the MA PhD track in anthropology did get a Fulbright last year to study the Cambodian Khmer diaspora in Italy. So again, one of the strengths, speaking from a program that really thinks of the diaspora as an active sort of component of reshaping Southeast Asia. Where is Southeast Asia? Who is Southeast Asia? It's not limited to that spot, that region on the map, right? Geographically, I want to, again, emphasize that, the study of Southeast Asia can, involve the diasporic and migrant communities all around the world, not just limited to one geographical region, Australia, New Zealand, Western Europe, North America, but in many different parts of the world, you find Southeast Asian communities. So, and that in itself opens up more gateways for funding or resources. You might be able to find programs, resources, funding opportunities from those countries who may not even be aware that they have an important or substantial Southeast Asian community in, right there in their backyard. So, think broadly and laterally in terms of Southeast Asia is what I would say.
Great point. And Eric, you get the last word.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to say, encourage students to put their research out there. Like there are many places, conferences but there may or may not be Southeast Asians who are commenting on your work. We have one, other universities have one. We have a Southeast Asia student conference that you can, and there will probably be virtual panels next year, some, because we're trying to also get international students. So there will probably be some virtual panels as well as face-to-face, but these are very inviting, and they're regional area studies associations meetings that you can maybe more easily get to than the annual one. Although the annual one is in Hawaii next year, the Asian Studies conference, if you want to go. But no, you get in and you'll network with Southeast Asianists. You'll have them they'll especially as undergraduates or new graduate students, they tend to be very encouraging and maybe directing them towards, have you thought about this? Have you read these things? And it's a good way to kind of dip your toe in, because it's a pretty inviting field, I find, and students find as well.
Fantastic. Thanks again to all of our panelists, and also to the students who made this event happen, as well as NYSEAN and Ruth. And for those who will be watching this later, do feel free to reach out to our panelists, volunteering them, or to those of us in the Public Universities Consortium if you have any questions, and good luck in your studies. And yeah, thanks again. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.